In New Orleans tonight, a retired police lieutenant has broken the wall of silence over one of the most troubling incidents during Hurricane Katrina. Over the police shootings, you hear the gunshots in the background that killed two unarmed people on the city's Danziger Bridge. Lohman admitted to helping orchestrate a cover-up. Victims were trying to get to a grocery store in the working-class neighborhood of Gentilly over the bridge from the eastern part of New Orleans.
Just listen and understand where we coming from. Full grown, T-Town, felon. I need heaven, Lord help me find my crossroads. Harsh living temptations, please cleanse my soul. We live where government barely give us assistance. To this day it still don't have assistance. For instance, me telling me owner of all company business. That's when they show hate and here start their bitterness. I take their bitterness and grant myself to have greatness. Realize I have a family to raise, don't have time to be careless. Make moves, strategize, I have a plan for my life. Please Lord don't let me die tonight. Please Lord help me to keep living right. Keep my head above water, front seat on this flight. On this flight, keep my head in the sky, floating on air. Wrestling enemies, winning with figure fours like with flair. Call it all black men to stand up, have patience, heaven help us keep me away from Satan. Just speaking from my conscience, thoughts of a man. Politics, my decisions, having the consequences, my plan. That's why I rhyme, living in my prime to get ahead one day at a time. That's why I rhyme, living in my prime to get ahead one day at a time. Feel me, one day at a time, yeah. Feel me, one day at a time. Heaven help me, heaven help me. In these times in life, help me to keep living right. One day have a wife, make a change in my life, not to be living trite. Heaven help me, in these times in life. Help me to keep living right. One day have a wife, make a change in my life, not to be living trite.
Some wonder if there's a heaven up above. Why I wonder? Cause God created love. No mortal man could create that feeling. Not in the devil's world with all these underhanded dealings. For instance, how they did my people in New Orleans. Left stranded for days, handle scratching and crawling. That's all we get from the powers that be. Who empowers the powers that be? Not me, might be D-E-V-I-L. Do what he say like puppets and burning hell. I'm not better than the next man, I'm guilty of it too. I gotta keep it real cause I'm not hypocritical. That ain't right, they won't let Bible scriptures pass. You can't do nothing in this world without cash. Heaven help me, I would love to change my ways. But money is the root to all evil and I'm trying to get paid.
Heaven help me in these times in life. Help me to keep living right. One day have a wife, make a change in my life, not to be living trite. Heaven help me in these times in life. Help me to keep living right. One day have a wife, make a change in my life, not to be living trite.
Heavenly Father, please save me, cause I'm about to go crazy. Times are hard on my soul, my heart's so cold. I'm what they call the product of a broken home. Broken dreams, broken promises, I'm all alone. I gotta find a way to make a way about the struggle. It's mind-boggling, cause the pressure's always on me. You wouldn't believe half of the things I've been through. People that turned their backs on me, said I would lose. Called me a fool for fighting, but I still fought through. That's why I walk around this earth like I got nothing to lose. So Father, if you hear me, can you help me on my way? Show me, guide me where I need to be. I'm tired, Lord, I'm so tired. Can you take away the rain, bring the sunshine? I'm down on my knees, I'm begging, can you please open your gates, send heaven to help me.
Heaven help me in these times in life. Help me to keep living right. One day have a wife, make a change.
Their job is to protect us, not kill us.
And on the flip side, a handful of protesters screaming from the sidelines.
You bunch of dirty scums! If in fact the police officers continue to kill unarmed people are unarmed. You know, it's a travesty.
Expecting redress. Instead, you have to take that government to the world court and accuse it of genocide and all of the other crimes that it is guilty of.
Greetings and welcome to another powerful edition of the Community Defender Talk Show, one powerful hour of truth, dispelling falsehood. I'm your host, Brother Darrell Muhammad, and we're so happy that you have tuned in to tonight's program. And of course, we're going to be dealing with a year-end review a year-end review, and we're just going to look into the year of 2017 as we close out this 2017 chapter of the Community Defender Talk Show. And of course, the next time that we have a live broadcast, we will of course be in a new year. We will be in 2018. So we want to, I guess, just deal with a few things that have transpired over this past 365 or 360 or so days. And of course, a lot of us witnessed in horror last year as Donald Trump was elected president, not with the majority of the votes, but with the majority of the electors in the Electoral College. And many of us have had so much hope in the political process and in the system that is the United States of America. And a lot of us were very disheartened by the way that the system is structured, that it allows for somebody who got less votes, 3 million less votes, to become the president and win an election getting less votes, and of course still calling itself a democracy when the majority of people did not vote for Donald Trump. But the thing that I loved about all of that is that we have a significant, I guess, comparison and contrast, because the reason that Donald Trump was elected was because of what you call racial identity politics. It was the fact that he was a white man, and that many people were very tired and upset that a black man was actually in the office for 8 years, that it brought out all of these racist sentiments. It brought out the division that was already there. It brought a lot of ugly things to the surface. Now, many people say that Donald Trump is a divisive figure. And I don't know if Donald Trump is a divisive figure or not, but I will say he exposes the divisions that are already there. There are divisions that are already there in America based on race. Black people see things one way, white people see things another way. And it is that separate vision of the reality that both of us are looking at. So, for example, when we all saw over 20 years ago Rodney King being brutally beaten, we knew what we were looking at. But the people on the jury who were white people saw something different. And so you had the acquittal of those officers where we thought we were seeing a butt whipping. And the people on the jury saw regular routine law enforcement. That was just one of the great examples of how black people and white people see things, see America, see the world in very, very differently, not only based upon our experiences. Because a lot of people say, well, you know, black people have different experiences. Well, that's true, we do. We have very different experiences from white people. Driving down the street, walking down the street. White people drive down the street and everything is fine. We drive down the street and are pulled over and shot to death. So we have very different experiences. But the other thing is that there are differing natures. Everybody on the planet Earth does not have the same nature. And it has always been taught to us that everybody is the same. Everybody is not the same. That's impossible. Because if everybody was the same, then, and we all were, I guess, needing the same things, and if racism was just something taught, then it wouldn't be so pervasive all over the world if it was taught. It's kind of like grass is green all over the planet Earth. And the reason that it's green all over the planet Earth is because it's the nature of grass to be green. Because of the chlorophyll that is within grass, it makes the grass green. So if something is the same way everywhere, you have to begin to look at the fact that it may be the nature of the thing, that you're looking at that is causing that phenomenon. And so when you're looking at an oppressive white supremacist thing on a global scale, when you're looking at something happening all the way from 1555 when we were first brought here as slaves, all the way until now it being the same thing, then we have to begin to look at the nature of the people that we're dealing with and the natures or the differing natures of the two people, white and black, original and non-original. And that's what we need to begin to look at and kind of focus on. Now, our brother Barack Obama left office, I believe it was January the 20th. And that ushered in a new era, as many people would say. And the campaign was, of course, tainted by race. Of course, Donald Trump came to office and he called everybody, he called the Mexicans rapists. He called them criminals. He name-called particular people. And then during the campaign, he indicated that a judge of Mexican origin was not qualified to be objective in a suit that deals with Donald Trump. So it's a situation where the only people, according to Donald Trump, that can be objective on the bench are white people. Because nobody who's Mexican is qualified to judge a case that he's dealing with. So we had all of that. But the beautiful thing that happened, I think this week, was when a gentleman by the name of Tim Wise called our attention to the fact that in Louisiana over 20 years ago, 60%, of all of the white vote went to David Duke. 60%. 60%, a great majority of the white vote went to David Duke. And then a person who kind of ran the same campaign, over 60% of the white vote went to Donald Trump, who openly, in my view, ran a racist campaign. So what does that say? And one of the things that Tim Wise said in his tweet, that there's something wrong with the white electorate. Of course, it's a white man saying this, but that's the backdrop. That's what we're dealing with. Now, you have Brother Barack, no investigations, no indictments, 8 years, clean, nothing wrong, no scandals, anything going on. And then you have Donald Trump. You got major indictments of his campaign manager, indictments of his former national security advisor, guilty pleas, and indictments. You got criminal activity, crooked people coming in, and that's what the majority population voted in. They voted for this, and many of them did not like Barack Obama, but yet you have all these scandals. You have the Russia probe. You have all of this stuff going on, a totally disorganized administration. So we really can't say, and for those of you who, for whatever reason, you believe that black people are less intelligent, less organized, less this, less that, if you just contrast the first president who was not white, and you contrast him with the person that's there now, you cannot conclude that there's any intellectual inferiority on the part of black people, certainly. You have to conclude that Barack Obama's vocabulary and his ability to communicate is 1 million times better than Donald Trump's. And you have to understand that his administration is a lot less organized than Barack Obama's administration is. It's totally unorganized. Appointments not even filled. The only thing that he's focusing on is putting right-wing judges on the courts. They've been appointing judges that are right-wing, and one judge was recently questioned that didn't even know basic law. that couldn't even answer questions about basic law. And that video went viral. I think it was with Senator Kennedy, and he didn't even know basic law. But it appears that not knowing what you're doing is a hallmark of the Trump administration. Being stupid and unintellectual is a hallmark of the Trump administration, and it is really what the state of Louisiana loves. They didn't like Barack Obama, who was articulate, well-spoken, organized, thoughtful, and in a state that is fat and full of cancer, full of heart attack and stroke. He laid on the table health care that was affordable, and yet a fat, cancer-filled, heart attack, stroke, diabetic state had a problem, had governors that had a problem expanding Medicaid so that people could get covered under the Affordable Care Act, or what is called Obamacare. So the insanity of the state of Louisiana and the basic electorate to literally vote against your interests. Now, net neutrality has been overturned, so that people are going to have to then pay more for certain services on the internet that they didn't have to. The internet service providers are going to be able to be discriminatory in what they do, and the rules are going to change to the detriment of the consumer. Then you got a tax proposal where 62% of all the benefits go to the top 1%, and this is what you, the state of Louisiana, voted for. You voted for something that was ultimately going to be against yourself. And you voted against your own interests because of your hatred, your absolute insane hatred for black people. You couldn't even see what was going to benefit you, yourself. And so for all you 300, 400-pound Republicans with diabetes, hey, you should have loved Obama. Because as fat and cancer-filled as many of you are, you know you need the Affordable Care Act. You know that you need Medicaid expansion. You know that that would be good for the economy of this state. Now we find that certain tax incentives, this was in today's paper, that certain tax incentives designed to help businesses modernize actually cause layoffs. So the state is giving money to businesses so they can modernize their equipment, and then they use that modernization then to lay off people, and it actually works against the overall job market. So when you look at Republican policies, they literally work against the working man. They work against the very people that vote for the Republicans. They absolutely work against us. Now, looking at this state, Louisiana, which is a backward state where people need to read a lot more than we do here in the state of Louisiana, both white and black. A lot of the stuff that comes out of our mouths and a lot of the decisions that are made is because people are just downright stupid. And I'm going to give you an example. Those in the state legislature are our leaders, okay? They are the people in leadership. Now, in the same legislative session that they strengthened seatbelt laws, in that same legislative session, they made it to where you didn't have to wear a helmet on a motorcycle. Same legislative session. Now, they later went back to change it in a subsequent session, but think about the stupidity of that. Requiring a person to wear a seatbelt in a car in that legislative session, and at the same time telling a man he doesn't have to wear a helmet on a motorcycle, and claiming to be all about public safety. That's the kind of stupidity that has been in Louisiana, and not just Louisiana, but all over the place. Now, a lot of you are heartened, or you've been given hope by the fact that Roy Jones not Roy Jones, what's the boy's name? Roy Moore. Roy Moore lost the election by 20,000 votes, and he lost, and it's supposed to be a sign that everything's going to be all right. But understand that the Democrats that get elected in the South, and keep in mind the Democratic Party is the party under which the crime bill, which still has your cousin, still has Ray Ray and Pookie in jail right now because of what Clinton signed. And when Jeff Sessions came in, he only reverted back to Clinton-era policies in what he did at the Justice Department. That's all he did was switch it back to how it was under Bill Clinton. So Black America, you don't have any friends in the Democratic Party, and you don't have any friends at all in the Republican Party. Your friends have always been God and his messenger. If you're not rolling with God and the servant of God in your midst, you really and I don't even have any friends. God is our only friend. And as the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, we must depend on Allah, God, and ourselves. Because the Democrats nor the Republicans have a promising future plan for you and I. There's nothing there for us. I'm going to give you an example. We inaugurated the first Black woman mayor in Baton Rouge. She's a very intelligent sister who has worked hard in the community, a lot of times with our children. I have seen her because I work in the community. I have run into the now mayor numerous times working in the community. She's one of the few people in elective office that I've actually seen in the trenches working in the community. So I know she's a good person. I want to say that. But Sister Sharon Weston Broome appears to be fearful. Now, if you into politics, you could say we as Black people elected a Black Democrat. We voted for a Black Democrat, we got a Black Democrat. All right. After a while, the chief officer, the chief administrative officer, is a person that what I've been told used to run the Republican Party of the state of Louisiana. So we voted for a Black Democrat, but apparently, even though he ran as an independent in the election, he was high up in the Republican Party, which means that those values of incarceration, those values of slighting the poor to the effect of the rich, are the same values that he's worked on if he's worked in the Louisiana Republican Party. So those are those values that he believes in. Now, he is the chief administrative officer of the city. Now, the question I would ask my sister, if you had have defeated Mr. Gissel in an election, would he have made you the chief administrative officer of the city? Would he have put you in a position where you would have a six-figure salary and a seat at government? I should think not. So my thing is, why would you defeat people whose values and norms are contrary to your constituency and give them such a big seat at the table for really doing nothing to try to appease one side of the city over another? Thinking that you've made a deal with that other side, with those other people, so you think that you have some peace now. But again, and we as Black people, we voted for one thing, and we still got the same old thing. It got switched up on us. So now somebody who used to be high up in the Republican Party is now running the city on a day-to-day basis anyway. And we don't even agree with the Republicans. So we still haven't gotten really what we wanted, even though we went out and we cast our ballots. And like I say, I voted for the sister. I thought she was the best candidate, hands down. I thought she had the best ideas, hands down. But under fear, she's canceled little contracts that black people had under fear. And now with Gissel there, you don't think that other rich people are going to get bigger contracts? I mean, I'm just asking. They're going to get bigger contracts. So now they're still in control because they control us by fear. And when you run for office, and I would say this of Sharon or anybody else, you run for office, don't be scary. One of the things that people liked about Trump, as stupid and ignorant as he is that they knew he wasn't scared. And even though they didn't agree with some of the things he said, it was his lack of fear that people admired about this goofball named Trump. So one of the things that I admire about the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is his lack of fear and his reliance on God to see him through whatever it is. And unfortunately, our last two black mayors in a majority black city have been fearful and have refused to stand up, in my view, for our people like they should. Because with the inequity that exists in the city of Baton Rouge, and with the inequity that exists in the state of Louisiana, our leaders cannot be cowards and be leaders. So it's unfortunate that we're looking at what we're looking at, but nonetheless, that's what it is. Now, I want to let you know that the black youth are marked for death by the U.S. government. I don't know if you heard that. I'm going to say it again. Black youth are marked for death by the U.S. government. And they're doing all sorts of things to lead our children astray. They are promoting and trying to normalize homosexuality. They are producing within our young people a drug culture. They are requiring vaccinations before you can go to school. And they are giving your children a watered down, Europeanized curriculum that does not prepare them for the challenges that they face in the future. That's what they're doing. They're destroying. And they're making sure, even though there may not be a spot for them in college, even though there may not be a spot for them at a training center so they can get a trade, one thing they make sure they always have is a spot in a jail cell. That's what they make sure that they have for you and my children. So when you look at it, just putting it out here, it's going in the wrong direction. And leadership refuses to unify for the purposes of raising our people up. Now, I want to mention something to you right quick because I think it's important. And recently, I was looking on Facebook, and recently, a list of bad officers was compiled by the Los Angeles Sheriff Department. This list they sued to keep it secret. But the list involved officers who did all kinds of things: drugs, sex, brutalizing people. One guy pulled a woman over and forced her to perform oral sex. These are the officers that are on the force, on a list that they want to keep that list secret. And these officers have been involved in the testimony of some 62,000 felony cases since the year 2000. So all of these cases now are tainted because officers that they know are wicked are on a list that they've compiled, and they want to keep that list secret. So the LA Times was able to get the list, and it's gonna bring into question all of the felony cases that these officers have been over. So let me go ahead and take this caller. Go ahead and call you on there with the community defender.
Good evening, Brother Darrell. Great show, man. Look, you know, that piqued my ears when you start saying a list of bad officers. Well, you know, in the present city you are on the air now in Lafayette, there's certainly a long list of officers that we could name in this area if it was ever made public. But in this area, our people are either scared or either bought off. The politicians know who all the bad officers. Now, recently, there's an article in the Lafayette Advertiser about the present head city marshal, Mark Pope, who actually, you are sitting at his desk right now, who's actually been charged with perjury and other different infractions, and even defying a black judge. So he's presently being, a part of his sentencing is picking up litter at the Lafayette Parish Sheriff Department. Now, is this justice, Brother Darrell, compared to what happens to black folks on a daily basis? And there's another issue with a police officer who was a former employee of the notorious, and I say notorious because of all the past infraction, Iberia Parish Sheriff Department, Cody Dodge, who was charged in St. Martin Parish with some infraction. He was part of a situation where he was intimidating a witness, committing a battery on a witness, changing police reports, and so forth. He's under federal indictment and was charged this week. And you could go, the list goes on and on and on. Now, the question is, Brother Dow, when this new police force comes into power in New Iberia, will they vet these people, or we will have the same recycle? How often does that go on? Why there's no list to name all the officers with infractions, especially people who have violated the civil rights of a lot or committed misdemeanors and felonies against people in the black community? We should, as a group, should demand that these people be listed for all the infractions. If you're going to single out people who sexually harass and have a list of them, why not have a list of officers who commit crimes against people? I mean, if we could do it, just do it to everybody. You know, let's start listing everybody's infraction, even law. What makes them so special, Brother Darrell? So I just want to bring that point over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and that's real. The thing I would offer with that, unfortunately, is that law enforcement has always been used as a tool of control of primarily the black and brown communities. The control and subjugation of black people with the use of police as the arm of government to do that has been the history ever since we've been here in America. That's been the history, to keep us down. Go ahead, caller, you on air with the community defender.
How you doing? Enjoying the show, Brother Darrell?
Yes, sir.
I really hope that the people, the viewing public that's watching this program, I really hope that they're listening to exactly what you're saying when it comes to the youth, and especially like through education. When I graduated from high school, I didn't really realize how miseducated I was until I went to college my first year, and I couldn't do math. I couldn't do science. Everything that I really needed to know, I wasn't taught.
Mm-hmm.
I had to teach myself how to do algebra, teach myself how to do geometry, science, everything, you know. And it was difficult because a lot of these professors, you know, they've been there for a long time. They can't be fired. They understand that, you know. So a lot of times I would be in a classroom of 60 people in an auditorium, and they would have had like 3 blacks in the class. And of course, you know, the black students are targeted, you know. And so I really hope and pray that, you know, the parents, black parents that are watching this program, because this is probably the most informative program on AOC when it comes to blacks, you know, and it's the most truthful. You won't ever get a more truthful program than the Community Defender Talk Show. I feel I've been watching this program for years. I think this is a wonderful show. You do a wonderful job promoting the program and hosting the show. You know, I know you won't ever hear it from you. You won't tap yourself on the back, but you do so much of an excellent job, man. And I just want to say, keep up the good work, and I hope that the people out there is listening carefully to what you're saying, man. Have a nice night.
Thank you, my brother. I definitely appreciate the vote of confidence. And of course, you know, as we say as Muslims, all praise is due to Allah. And as we used to say in the Christian church, to God be the glory. And so we'll give it to God, we'll give it to the Creator. But I definitely, as an individual, I do appreciate the compliment coming from a brother, because again, what we do, what we have done, is out of our love for God and our love for God's people, who are black people. We are the original people of the earth, and we are chosen by God in this day to be raised up and for a new society, civilization to be built that will be unrivaled by any other civilization or society in the future. That may be difficult to believe, but nonetheless, we are the choice of God, and that is what He intends to do with our people. I want to read some of this article. It says, LA Times obtains secret list of bad cops. The police union didn't even want prosecutors to have the list. California is the only state in the country that blocks prosecutors from seeing entire police personnel files. It's also one of the 22 that keeps information on officer discipline from the public. But now a list compiled by the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department of about 300 deputies with histories of dishonesty and misconduct have been obtained by the Los Angeles Times. The document is dated 2014, the year it was first put together by then Sheriff John Scott. The Times cross-checked the list with court records and news reports to find out why the officers on it were placed there. The roster includes an officer who pepper sprayed an elderly woman, another who forced a woman he pulled over to perform oral sex on him, and one who doused a shirt with taco sauce to replace a bloodied shirt that went missing as evidence. According to the Times, 69% of the officers on the list for dishonesty, the top reasons after that were family violence, immoral conduct, stealing, and sex. The Sheriff's Department wanted to share the list with prosecutors to warn them of potentially problematic witnesses. Were the list shared with prosecutors, prosecutors would be obliged to share it with defense attorneys too. A police union and association for Los Angeles deputy sheriffs sued to keep the list private. According to the Times, the officers on the list were potential witnesses in more than 62,000 felony cases since 2000. That represents a gross miscarriage of justice, even if a small fraction of those cases actually saw these problem cops serve as witnesses. So you're looking at corruption, big time corruption all over the place. And of course, you know, sexual assault, all of this stuff going on with people with badges. But this is where we were 20 years ago, and this is where we are now. The Community Defender is in its, I believe, 19th year of operation. We are almost, we're going to be making 20 years in about a year and a half. We should be at 20 years operating as the Community Defender. Now, what this represents is a remarkable amount of dedication on the part of our producer and on the part of our director to stick with something for so long, to stick with an idea for so long, to believe that a certain voice and a certain perspective was worth hearing, that they would take up their valuable time to make sure that this show airs, and has aired since 1999. So it's quite a while. So a baby born at the time the Community Defender show started is probably in college now, or on their way to college. So it says that there's some stick-to-itiveness on the part of our staff here at the Community Defender. So it's not just myself and, of course, Brother Oscar, who started, also with us, Sister Deborah and others, but a lot of people have done research, done PowerPoint, did graphics, done all kinds of things to make a positive contribution to the program. But I wanted to mention this to you. And this deals with another police issue. All right? And it's about the Chicago police. It says, playing with numbers and racial profiling. Gang database in Chicago gets low marks from researchers and activists. Now here's what it says. Gun violence is the top crime problem associated with Chicago, particularly in neighborhoods and communities occupied primarily by Black and Latino people. The issue has long been on the radar of politicians at every level, and the Chicago Police Department has employed a number of strategies to get a better handle on the daily shootings that happen in the South and West Sides. One of these is the Strategic Subjects List, SSL, also referred to as the Chicago Gang Database. The purpose of the SSL, according to police, is to identify those individuals who are most likely to either be perpetrator or victim of gun violence. This is commonly referred to as predictive policing. Isn't that something? So they're trying to predict who's going to commit a crime so they can profile them. So let me finish reading this. Hold on, caller. However, a recent study of the SSL conducted by the University of Illinois Chicago Policing in Chicago, the research group, found that the Chicago Police Department is actually using the database as a profiling mechanism specifically targeting Blacks and Latinos. Predictive policing is the kind of mathematical algorithm-based method of trying to essentially predict where crime will happen and who is most likely to engage in criminal activity. Janae Bansu, organizer with the Black Youth Project 100, and one of the principal researchers in the UIC study, told the Final Call. The Chicago Police Department isn't alone in using predictive policing, but the SSL is an example of the predictive policing practice by using data points such as being arrested for certain offenses, being in a particular age group, gang affiliation, or even being a victim of gun violence. However, there are many false positives in this technological algorithm-based policing method, and it just goes to show how unreliable predictive policing is. And then it goes on to say how so many people are on the list that have never been a victim of crime, that have never committed any crime, but yet they're on the list to be targeted by the Chicago police. Let's go ahead and take this call. Go ahead and call you on there with the Community Defender.
Yes, good evening, Brother Darrell.
How you doing, sir?
Very, very powerful show that you're having this evening. When you start talking about the list of policemen of Los Angeles, not just in Los Angeles that they should compile that list of. It should be all over the state of California. One of the things that we've seen is when Rodney King, in the Rodney King era, but that was going on way before Rodney King. Just so happened somebody was testing out their little camera, you understand me, and happened to pick it up. But the thing of it is, the sheriff was the one that started the blood in Los Angeles. They started, the police department started the Crips, because when they would start stopping these black guys, if they were policemen Oto's blood is the one that giving y'all names up. And when the sheriff would stop the one that was belonging to the Crips, is the Crips that's doing it to y'all. So they the one that initiated that gang thing, and black folks or black kids just picked it up. And it's not just black kids that's in that type of environment. They got Mexican kids, they got white kids, they got skinheads, they got neo-Nazis, they got all these people that are created, and the creation of that is to bring hate among each other, not love among each other. And if we learn how to love ourselves, but again, the miseducation is just like one of your callers say. He went to school, he had to teach himself all these things. We had to learn a lot of things that we know and do right now for ourselves as people that love the people that we know is of us, our culture, black people, you know. So those are the kind of things that we have to make sure that we keep going forward with. You know, back in the old days, all our artists, black artists, was singing it to us. What was going to happen to us? All the things, and some of them are deceased today, you know. All the things they were singing back in the days in their song and things like this here, they were singing it to us. But I don't think we took what they were saying or singing about to heart. And now, you know, a person like you that comes on and exposes itself to expose the wrong that the right of the white supremacists is going on. That's a very brave man, and you are a very brave man to even do that. And it's more than you, you know. But I'm just saying, you're doing it. Some people don't want to do it. You understand me? To expose the white supremacists that's going on in our country today among us. And everything that they do is against us, not for us. Thank you, Brother Darrell. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Keep throwing bricks in the graveyard.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate your vote of confidence once again. And of course, as I said before, to God be the glory. And we're just gonna continue to do it. But I just want to say that I have a good example. A couple of men that I've looked up to over the years. One, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the other one, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Those two men are men that I have looked up to and looked to for guidance and instruction. And myself, Sister Deborah, Brother Oscar, Muhammad, we have all studied those men in such a way, and they've given us kind of a pattern. And the thing that I've always promoted is the unity of all of our people, regardless of religious label. The Final Call newspaper, you know, I've been on the streets of Lafayette a lot of times with this paper, and I have you know, distributed this paper to a lot of our people in this city, in Plaquemine, Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in Monroe, Louisiana, you know, putting this paper out because a lot of our people don't know what's going on. And a lot of times because of religious label, a lot of our people put up a barrier between us. But the bottom line of it is I love my people no matter what you call yourself, whether you call yourself a Baptist or a Methodist or a Catholic. The bottom line of it is when I got pulled over last time, it had nothing to do with my religious affiliation and everything to do with my pigmentation rather than my religious affiliation. So just understand that that's what we're up against, and the unity of our people will solve over 90% of our problems. So we must come together. The idea that we still have hope in everything outside of ourselves, but with no hope in God and the unity of ourselves is really a shame. We sing about God in church, but we don't act on that with faith once we leave that church house we leave that church house, we've sung the hymn, and after we sung the hymn, the substance of it, we don't try to carry that into practice in our lives. And I'm not saying that we should be perfect, but I am saying that we should stand together in love and solidarity as a people, and that we should move with courage. The Bible says that God doesn't give you a spirit of fear. So if you are fearful, like a lot of politicians, if you are fearful, like a lot of our clergy, then understand that that spirit of fear wasn't given to you by God. And if it wasn't given to you by God, then you should not be guided by fear. You should be guided by what is necessary to make a better life and a better way for your people. And always let your people know what's going on behind the scenes. If there's a discussion that is going on that will be detrimental to your people, you are obligated to have a town hall meeting to discuss it, to bring it to the table so that the people become conscious about what's going on. But if you're having these discussions in your offices, discussions at dinner with people who are working against the greater interests of black people, and you're not bringing that, you're not fighting that, but you're going along with that, that's a problem. And one example is the insurance impound law, where probably 80% of all the cars towed off the road on that law have been black people. I talked to a state trooper who says he doesn't remember anybody's car being towed that wasn't black or Latino. Amazing. But yet and still we are driving without insurance at pretty much the same rate across the racial lines, yet we are the ones left on the side of the street without our cars. And the legislators should know not to give law enforcement any new additional power, because that power is going to be focused on black people. Even if it's written in a race-neutral way in the bill, don't vote for it, because it's always going to be used against our people. And when you go back and look at some of these draconian laws which have caused hyper-incarceration in the state of Louisiana, you will find that a lot of the yay votes for those laws came from ill-informed, unconcerned black elected officials as well. So when we tell our people to vote, be somebody with some backbone that they should vote for. Okay? I've never run for elective office, but if I did, I guarantee you I would be somebody that if you voted for me, like a doggone pit bull, the interests of my constituency at the cost of my life, I would actually defend. Period. If I'm not willing to die, I wouldn't run for office, unless I was willing to die for what I believed in and for the best interests of my constituency. Period. And if you're not willing to die, to give your life, you're really not going to be effective. The reason that Martin Luther King was effective is he was willing to die. The reason that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was effective, he was willing to die. The reason that Marcus Garvey was effective, he was willing to die. Everybody who stopped short of being willing to give their all, very limited effect. You got to be willing to give your life for your people, or don't try to lead your people. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. And as we look at this year and we contrast the difference, many white people are saying openly on the air when the news plays clips of Barack Obama, one white man said, "I miss that man so much," because he could see an intellectual expression of coherent ideas along with babbling. Okay? And so for those of you who believe in white supremacy, the comparison between Donald Trump and Barack Obama proves that white supremacy is not real. It's a false concept. Everybody knows in integrity, in skill, in intellect, that Barack Obama, though he's a black man, is far superior to Donald Trump. You can take race out of it, but you can't say that blacks are genetically inferior when you look at the past president and the present one. You can't say that. You can't say that George W. Bush is smarter than Barack Obama. You just can't say that. If there's a conversation to be had, you just can't say that. The most articulate, well-spoken, best representative that the country has ever had has been a black person, period. And he looked out for the greatest good, for the greatest number. So I don't agree with everything Barack did, but again, I'm just making the point that if you're a white supremacist, your philosophy has crumbled in the face of the actual evidence that's out there. And of course, I want to thank everybody that tuned into the Community Defender. We're going to be coming right back at you next year with powerful information, news that you can use. And of course, keep God first. And remember that we must depend on Allah and ourselves. I want to greet all of you this year in the greeting words of peace and paradise of Assalamu Alaikum, which means peace be unto you. And I look forward to seeing you next year.